big ones, small ones, round ones, square ones, brown ones, white ones. There are whole loaves, sliced loaves, short loaves, long loaves. Every sort of loaf that you can imagine. The boys and girls in my class are tasting different kinds of bread.
Don't eat too much, will you? It's nearly dinner time, you know.
The bread that they're eating was made by a baker who has a small bakery.
We're going to find out how he makes his bread.
Here's the baker's shop, made by machines in big bakeries. But this baker bakes his bread in a bakery behind his shop. He starts work very early in the morning, when you're still asleep. First he has to make dough. You bake dough to make bread. The flour is already in the mixing bowl, and the baker adds salt to it. Then he adds fat to the flour and salt. While the flour, fat and salt are mixing for a few minutes, the baker weighs something very special: yeast. Yeast makes bubbles in the bread. It makes the dough rise, so the bread will be light. The baker crumbles the yeast into some warm milk. Then he mixes it. Now the flour, fat and salt are well mixed in the dough mixer, and the baker adds the warm milk and yeast. He adds it very slowly. When everything is mixed together, it will be dough. The dough is left for an hour. The yeast begins to work. When it's ready, the baker divides it up, and he and his helpers make it into shapes. See how fast they work. This one is making bread rolls. And this one is making small cottage loaves. The baker is weighing dough to be made into big loaves. He works the dough with his hands. This is to make sure that there are no big air bubbles. It's called kneading the dough. Then the baker puts the pieces of dough into baking tins. But it isn't ready to be baked yet. If the baker baked the loaves straight away, they would be very small and hard. So he puts them into a warm oven, a proving oven. The warmth makes the dough rise. The oven is so big that the baker has to use a long pole to push the trays to the back. While the dough is rising, the baker heats another oven, a baking oven. The gas flame is very big and makes a roaring noise. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. Let's look inside the proving oven again. The sides are made with bricks. They keep the oven warm. Now let's watch the dough rise. The bubbles made by the yeast make the dough grow bigger. Soon you can see the dough rising above the tins. It's rising some more. They look more like loaves now, don't they? They've nearly risen enough. They've risen. But they still have to be baked. It's 7 o'clock, and it's taken exactly an hour for the dough to rise. The baker sprinkles the loaves with flour. Next they go into the hot oven, the baking oven. The baking oven is much hotter than the proving oven. The bread is put into the baking oven at 7:15. Inside the baking oven, the loaves turn crisp and brown. When they are baking, they smell lovely. At 7:45, they are baked, and the baker takes them out of the oven. He uses a thick cloth to hold the trays because they are very hot. The loaves are lovely and brown on the outside, and inside they are soft and steamy. That's how our baker makes his bread. We're making bread in class.
This is the dough. Do you see how soft and springy it is? You put your fingers in and see. Do you see?
Yes.
And over here are all the things that we used to make the dough. This is the flour, fat,
Salt.
yes, salt,
Yeast.
that's the yeast, and here is the water, yes. Now then, I'm going to give you each a tiny piece of dough, and you can take it back to your desk, and each of you can make a bread roll to take home. Is that all right? Now then, there's a piece for you. And a piece for you.
Thank you.
And a piece for John.
Thank you.
Mark.
Thank you.